Okay guys, so Maggie and I recently did a road trip across America and we saw some of those landscapes that we've always wanted to see. We also saw some pretty unique / weird things that we've always wanted to see. But our absolute favorite experience on this road trip was Zion National Park, and here's the bottom line. It is an absolutely breathtakingly, beautifully gorgeous landscape. It will completely blow your mind, but what you really want to see is Zion Canyon. This national park requires advanced planning for sure. There's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of permits and tickets, and if you want to camp or you want to hike and the shuttles, all these things, but we're going to tell you about that. How long should you stay at Zion National Park? Well, honestly, if we had a full week of free time, we would spend an entire week there and hike everything we absolutely could hike, but we only had a single day, and you can see it, you can get a really good feel for it in a single day. Why would you go to Zion National Park? Well, like I said, it's beautiful, but mostly because of the hiking. It has some of the best hiking we've done, and if you've watched this channel at all, if you're a subscriber, you know that we've been hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro and through the Himalayas and across deserts and through jungles. We like to do some hiking. $30, $30 for a 7-day pass. You can come and go to the park as much as you please, kind of like most of the parks that we've covered recently on the channel, but that's what it'll cost. So yeah, Zion is amazing. First of all, the driving into Zion National Park is pretty impressive. We saw lots and lots of people, like groups of friends, that had rented multiple Jeep Wranglers and taken off the roof and the door so they had a complete panoramic view of all the amazing monumental cliffs, faces, and landscapes, and we were just happy that we had a sunroof. But make sure if you go that you got some kind of vehicle that has large windows and your ability to look out and see things, rather than something that's very small and cramped like a little tiny sedan where you can't even see the mountains that are just so amazing. Oh, and there's the tunnel. The Zion Mount Carmel Tunnel is this tunnel that they finished in the 1920s, 1930s, early 1900s. It's not as big as modern day tunnels because back then the cars weren't as big as modern day cars, and people, Americans, weren't as big as modern day Americans anyway. So if you're gonna go through this tunnel, if you're very large vehicle like an RV or just something of that size, you have to get a permit actually, and they'll block the tunnel at each end to let you go through because you can't fit traffic going through both ways if there's any large vehicles. If there aren't any large vehicles, you can drive through. Anyway, point being, it's one of the coolest tunnels you'll traverse.
Best ride ever. Wow.
Okay, once you're in the park and you're near the canyon, you have to deal with getting into the canyon, which is really where you want to go to see all the pretty things. You're going to see a lot of people that have pretty much given up on the situation and they've just parked at the entrance to the canyon and they're just going to walk. But it's a very long walk, and if it's very warm, you might be very unhappy. When we went, because of COVID and just the changing situation and the logistics, and the park wasn't officially open yet, we were allowed to drive in. But I hear now that essentially March through October, you have to take the shuttle. The main drag is closed down to civilian traffic unless you're staying at one of the lodges in the canyon. But just make sure you plan ahead on how you're going to get into the canyon. Otherwise, you might be in for a pretty bad surprise that you have to walk miles and miles just to get to the trailhead to hike miles and miles. Which brings us to today's first pro tip on bottom line up front, which is if you have a good bike with you, or even if you've rented a bike from Springdale or one of the local towns, or maybe you happen to have a spare pair of rollerblades in your backpack, you're in luck, because this park is one of the most bike friendly and rollerblade friendly, I guess, because both of those require paved surfaces for the most part. But not true, because some bikes can go off-road. Anyway, if you have a bike, you're gonna love this park. You can just come and go at your leisure, get around. We wish we'd had bikes. But enough about rollerblades and bikes and cars with sunroofs. Let's talk about hiking. That's why you're here, right? Because you want to do some hiking. It has some of the most popular hiking in all of America. Angel's Landing is the most popular, it's the most epic, and while we were there, it was the most closed.
If I'd ever known how you'd forever change my life, I would up and go. I would up and go, I'd walk
I hope you're excited about that.
out of sight. But I'm glad I rearranged it, rearranged from falling apart. Because you built me a mosaic, a perfect puzzle.
So instead we went for the Emerald Pools, which was completely beautiful and actually a much easier hike. All the hikes are going to look at the park, the canyon from different angles and perspectives, and it's going to be beautiful no matter what. But Angel's Landing, we've read and heard, is amazing, and I'm sure it is when it's open. Now, as travel YouTubers, you would probably think that we do a lot of research before we go and travel and do things, but we also sometimes like to be surprised, and honestly on this trip we were just kind of going for it. So we saw that the Emerald Pools was a good hike and Angel's Landing was closed, so there's another hike called the Narrows. We're like, cool, let's go do the Narrows. And this is what makes me really love Zion National Park, because we get to the trailhead of the Narrows and it turns out that it's a river. The Virgin River has carved a gorge into the stone and they've marked it down as a hike. So if you plan to do the Narrows, which we totally recommend because it was totally beautiful and exciting and adventurous, you're gonna need some specific footwear. We saw a lot of people in very specific waterproof shoes, of which we did not have. We saw people with lots of waterproof bags, of which we did not have. And lots of people had these sticks to balance themselves as they fought the current or, fjorded the river. Sticks are easy to find in the forest, so we did have some of those. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the surprise too much on this hike, and because we didn't have a waterproof bag, we didn't actually really have my really nice camera. We had Maggie's camera and we had some cell phone footage, but you'll just have to see for yourself. If you have time, go check out the Narrows and go as far as you can until you don't see any other humans and the water's getting too deep and you're getting worried. Then go a bit farther and then turn around because it's getting dark and you're not even sure where you are. I already shot this part, but I left the microphone on the table, so I don't know if you actually heard any of it. Anyway, that's Zion National Park. We really enjoyed it. We had a really great time. We've been to lots of national parks, and Yosemite was our favorite, but Zion may have taken that spot. Maggie's over here. She's doing her active duty Air Force stuff right now. We're in Washington, D.C. If you're new to the channel, Maggie is my travel partner, buddy in crime. That's so hard to get the finger where it's supposed to be. There she is. She's active duty in the Air Force, so we're gonna be doing lots of videos about Washington, D.C. once things open up a bit more. Never really been up here. I've been told I should not talk so fast on the channel, but I don't know if I agree with that. Anyway, Maggie says,
Okay, bye.
there's a lady sitting over there while I do this, and she just sits and judges me. She's on her laptop, and she thinks she's so importante. She's just sitting there laughing when I mess up, which is never.